That was my biggest fear. A technical difficulty in the first minute of Braden Moser in the morning. We'll be starting soon. Good morning. Good morning. My first time streaming on YouTube. And never done it before. So it's kind of a little different. Yeah. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to have a supportive wife. Not gonna lie. Someone that just believes in me unconditionally. That's crazy. How are you doing today, Leah? And if anybody else, how are they doing? I should probably make a post or something and share. Leah said she had a nightmare last night. I don't know what it was really about, but I know that it was about me. I think she said I wanted to get married in Nauvoo. Which, if you don't know, Nauvoo is sort of like this kind of Mormon village in Illinois. It's pretty freaking cool, but it's also very annoying. I found it. I am going to get started here in just a second. I'm waiting for a few people to join. I just want to give everybody a minute to get settled this morning. Put this thingy up. Maybe that'll be cool. Oh, good morning, Bailey.
Ah, yes.
So happy you're here. It means so much. Thank you. So early. Okay. I am just gonna finish making a post here on Snapchat. That's like the most active social media platform that I'm on. I just smile at the camera and take pictures. Good morning, Bailey. How are you doing? How are you doing this morning? Do you have anything fun going on today? Like I said, we'll get started here, officially started in just a minute. So great, so tired, and I'm literally just working other than kicking ass at Ultimate Leader with Leah. Yeah, your guys' team is destroying. Like, compared to mine. I don't know if you heard, but we are 0-6 right now? 0-7? What? 0 in everything. We've not won a single game. Okay. Well, I made the little Snapchat post. So let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. I don't know what you've got to drink, but you better grab something. Because you're going to need it. Alrighty. So, welcome to Braden Moser in the Morning. A unscripted, unproduced, unpolished, uninteresting podcast, live stream, show. Just kidding. It is interesting. It's going to be engaging. It's going to be relatable. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit crazy. For those who don't know, I have actually been diagnosed with ADHD, which I didn't know was going to affect my life as much as it did. I didn't know that ADHD was a whole big deal. I thought like, oh, cool, I'll just like have a lot of energy and, you know, be fun and hyper and a little bit distracted all the time. No. ADHD affects your life in so many ways. Good morning, Heidi. Good morning. And it affects Leah's life in so many ways. She's always going around finishing projects for me. Like, I just leave a wake of started projects. She's very good at going around and fixing them up, finishing everything up. Maybe today you'll get the first win. Winning comes in threes, right? Yeah. Heidi Doherty, here for it. Welcome, Heidi. Good morning. Good morning. So I've been thinking a lot about what I want this first episode to be, and I've put a lot of pressure on myself, like to make it be this perfect big thing that is a moment that changes the world and the nation and my timeline forever. But I think that I just want to be here for a second. Just kind of want to feel this. It's a crazy moment for me. I don't know. I didn't think that I would ever take a chance and like make content again. Start off with a story. I think I got this sort of like, enjoy the moment. This is a big next step. Thank you, Bailey. I feel so lucky to have supportive people in my life. Ah, yes, this is what I wanted. The main thing Braden Moser in the Morning is supposed to be is a community. I just want it to be people who... What is this song? That's crazy loud. I'm going to change to a different playlist. Something a little more chill. Something a little more morning. Like a little cafe. The most important thing for Braden Moser in the Morning is for it to be a community. A place where people feel safe to be themselves, to be authentic, to ask questions they normally don't feel safe asking. And to allow me to ask questions that they don't feel like asking. Because, I don't know, I feel like that is, I've said this before to my consulting clients, that my biggest strength is good questions. Growing up, I think the first time I remember noticing that I did this, I was probably in 5th grade. So, little background, I was primarily homeschooled for my entire life. But elementary school, I did go to school. I was in and out starting in 3rd grade. 3rd grade was the first time I was ever homeschooled. It was for the first half of the school year, and then my parents got too busy with their business to actually homeschool us for real. So they put us back in school, me and my siblings. So that was 3rd grade, and then I think the second half of 3rd grade, I went to school again. Just went to the elementary school, and everybody, that was my 2nd year at that school. And people, I think, were like, where the heck was he for the first half of the year? And that kind of started off this trend of being like, Braden's kind of weird at school. And so I haven't had a lot of supportive people in my life, which is why this is crazy to have even 3 people active in the chat. That's crazy to me. Because back then I literally had no one in my corner. So thank you seriously so much for being here. Let's talk about this. Let's have some questions. Let's have a good morning. Something that gets our brains going, gets us engaged, gets our emotions prepped and primed for the roller coaster of life. My sister just texted me. Oh, that's cute. She's sharing the stream. That's adorable. Thank you, Myra. I love you. So, as I was saying, I noticed that questions are my biggest strength in elementary school. And of course, I am going to be playing with this little fidget spinner off camera as much as possible because I need something to keep me like engaged and distracted a little bit. But in 5th grade, I would raise my hand and I would ask questions for, like, of the teacher. Not because I didn't understand what was going on and not because I needed the answer to that question, but because I noticed the teacher was explaining things in a confusing way, and I could see that there were other students in the class who had no idea what was going on. They couldn't follow along. So I would ask those questions that I could see people were too afraid to ask, that would help them to understand things the right way. So those clarifying questions. And I've done that kind of my whole life. I've always just asked questions constantly, especially why. I used to pester my parents with, why are volcanoes a thing? Are volcanoes real? Are you serious? There's mountains that explode with fire and lava? That's crazy. That like childhood wonder of the whole world asking those questions. That was me. And that's always been me. Always asking questions. So that is one huge aspect of what Braden Moser in the morning is going to be. So it's about us together learning. I gotta have people in the class to ask questions for. Leah says, you're very good at asking and answering questions. I'm interested to know, what is the biggest reason you started the show and what's it gonna be like? Thank you for asking, Leah. What an insightful question. It's almost like you know the answer and you're asking for everyone else in the audience. I'm interested to know, what is the biggest reason you started the show and what's it gonna be like? Well, it's gonna be a little like this, unscripted, like I said. There will generally be a topic. There will usually be a main point of conversation, a story, a person that will come on the show. There's going to be interviews, discussions. Eventually, I would love to be able to open it up to the viewers and have you kind of just join like a Discord call with me, and we can have any chat, any questions that you have about life, religion, purpose, business, marketing, operations, organization, whatever it is. Anything that you are doing to improve your life and change your story, which is the other thing that is the main reason I started the show. I've never really felt like I could tell my story. Like I had a space where my whole story was safe, you know. I've had a lot of conversations with friends and family and therapists lately where I've started to tell my story more than I ever have, and I'm realizing that it's not really a normal story. Like that when people hear things, they're kind of like, whoa, are you serious? That happened to you? That's not normal. And sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a not so pleasant way. But I wanted to have a space where everybody's story is welcome, including my own. I wanted to have a group of people who... Myra says, woohoo, sorry I couldn't figure out the chat at first. Proud of you for starting. Love the vibes. Thank you, Myra. Yeah, no, last night I think I was telling Leah, I was like, I can't do it. I'm just gonna quit. I recorded this big video, and I might show you because it's still a work in progress. Give you a little sneak peek of what could have been. But I just was feeling super doubtful, super scared. Like, I don't know if I can do this again. Which is crazy because I used to do public speaking in front of thousands of people live on a stage. And now I'm just sitting in my office at home wearing a sweater, and I'm freaking out. Life is crazy. The ups and downs, the ways that we change and grow and evolve as human beings because of the experiences we have. What a crazy thing. All right. Well, let's officially get started with the main topic of this episode. Thank you everybody for chatting so far. Continue to ask questions, make comments. It seriously means so much. Just to know that you're here. But let's get started. So I want to give you a little bit of an introduction to who Braden Moser is. Who's this guy on my screen at 7:20 in the morning on Cinco de Mayo? Happy Cinco de Mayo, and 5th day of Mental Health Awareness Month, May. All right, some background information. For those who don't know, a year ago, I had what my wife and I lovingly refer to as a mental breakdown. I started having really, really terrible panic attacks, like every day for hours of just like, whew, like laying down on the couch. I'd get out of bed. I would try to get on my computer and get some work done. I was freelancing. I just quit my job. I quit my job in March of 2024. I was a marketing and operations manager at a multi-million-dollar law firm here in Kansas City. Things were going great in my career as far as money is concerned. However, fulfillment, joy, happiness, I had none of that at the time. I felt like crushed. I felt like I wasn't contributing to the world in the way that I wanted to. I was just making people money, making myself money. Didn't feel like it had any real purpose or meaning besides just providing for people's monetary needs. So I quit. I put in my 3 weeks notice in March after we finished a project that I was essential on, which was one of the reasons why I was feeling pretty burnt out. I was solo managing an evidence database project, which was way more complicated than it needed to be. One of the biggest cases that the law firm has ever handled, and they didn't have the resources to handle the amount of evidence that they had. So I had to build a database for that. Anyways, burnt out, feeling unfulfilled, quit my job. The plan was to start my own businesses. I have always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My parents were entrepreneurs. From the moment I've existed or have a memory, they've been running their own business, whether it was the home theater and home automations business that they ran in Utah, where my dad installed fancy equipment into millionaires' homes and made a very different lifestyle, or if it was the business of the farm, when they started the farm, when we moved to Missouri, when I was 11. A very different lifestyle. Very, very earthy, very raw. No home theaters. But whether it was that, I just kind of always knew I wanted to be my own boss. I could see the fulfillment that my parents had in their businesses compared to some of my friends' parents, and the freedom that they had. I really wanted that. So the plan was quit my job, start my own businesses. And I think it was in college. I was studying communications with an emphasis in video production. Well, I have this microphone. I had this since forever. My mom bought it to sing and then never used it because she was too busy on the farm. But that's why I got it. And this camera. I studied video production. I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. I shouldn't be this nervous. I even took a live broadcast performance class. And I'm breaking my microphone live on stream for the first time. What is going on? Help. Somebody. Where's my assistant? Leah. She doesn't get paid assistant kind of money. Alright, where were we? Businesses. I didn't know what I was going to start. Thank you. Yeah, can you see the ADHD? Do you see how this is just bouncing all over the place? Ah, wowzers. It's going to be fun. Buckle in, take notes. It's going to be hard to follow along, but we'll get there. College. I met this beautiful woman named Leah Moser. Well, her original name, Leah Doherty. And she said, "What's your life plan?" And I said, well, and I made it up on the spot pretty much. But it was a pretty good plan. I said, well, when I graduate, and I did it in this accent. I said, well, Leah, when I graduate, I am going to start a marketing agency. And I'm going to get it to the point where it can run itself. And then I'm going to start other businesses. And then I can use my own marketing agency to market my businesses. So that way I don't need to pay somebody else to do the marketing for my business. And that's why I studied communications, because I remember my parents trying to film their own commercial for their business. And at the time, I think it was called America's Home Theaters or something like that. They tried to film their own commercial, and then they were going to like do internet or something, and it was terrible. It was awful. So I remember seeing that. I was probably 9 or 10. I remember seeing that and thinking, wow, I am going to have to figure out how to do ads. Because my parents, it was awful. It was so bad. And that was probably the first spark of like, I want to know how to do video stuff. And that was why I did communications, was the marketing aspect. So I did like a ton of business classes and marketing classes as my extracurricular or extra. What are the free credit classes that you have? Whatever, the free ones. I chose business classes instead of like archery. Bailey says, we'll take a break for a second and read this chat. Bailey says, LOL. I feel like having something that is basically your baby means so much more than before when you're on stage. Understandable to be nervous. Thank you, Bailey. Appreciate the understanding there. Myra says, I think a marketing company is a great idea. Marketing will always be a necessity for businesses, so it would be successful for sure, especially if you're the boss. Thank you, Myra. That was the plan. Yep. Start a marketing company. Thank you for bringing me back into the story. Start a marketing company. And so then the first job I got out of college, or while I was in college, was an internship at a marketing agency that was just getting started. And while I was working there, I think I realized how corporate America and just kind of American business is set up and structured and run. And it is all about making money, which is not a bad thing. It is not bad to want to make money. But I guess for me, I felt like I needed something more than just a way to make money. And that job also kind of just stressed me out and burnt me out. I had this problem where anytime I would work for somebody else, I would take all of their business problems on as my own. And it would give me anxiety because people did not know how to run businesses most of the time. Crazy. Hold on. YouTube is telling me that I should change my stream setting. It says that the stream's bitrate is lower than it should be. I don't know if that's something I can change right now. So how are things looking on your guys' end? Does it look okay? Does it sound okay? How far behind are we? Is there a big delay? We'll see. Either way, the show must go on. Thank you. Thank you, Leah. Good. That's great. So, felt like I needed something more fulfilling than just making money. And I did the marketing job out of school or in school. And I was like, this is not it, chief. I feel like I'm just scamming people a little bit. But I did enjoy the storytelling component of video production and marketing. I was like, I want to tell the story of business. Why are you doing what you do? Why does this matter? Because there are plenty of like very passionate entrepreneurs out there that really care about the product or the service that they are bringing into the world. It's a little far and few between, but they are out there. They exist. So, after school, Leah and I moved back to Missouri because I told her this plan of starting a marketing agency and then starting my own businesses, and apparently that was enough to convince her to marry me, even though we hadn't been dating for even a year, which is crazy. She had no idea who I was. I was a stranger. And in fact, I scammed her. I pulled a Zachary and I scammed her. My brother's name is Zachary, and he's notorious for ripping off old ladies on Facebook Marketplace to make money. He's good at it though. Good at scamming. But anyways, I scammed Leah. I said, I'm going to start this marketing agency. I'm going to start businesses. I'm going to be rich. I want to have a Tesla by the time I'm 25. But guess what? Now I don't want a Tesla because I'm not a big fan of what's going on with Tesla. Anyways, back to the story. ADHD. Scammed my wife into marrying me. And then I said, hey, you know what would be a great idea is if during my last semester, I only have to take one online class or a couple online classes. So what if the last semester of my senior year, we moved back to Missouri, to Kansas City, Missouri, and actually Excelsior Springs, Missouri, and we would move to my family's farm. Wouldn't that be a great idea? Hey, Leah, wouldn't that be a really great idea? We did that. If we moved to the farm where all of my childhood trauma comes from. Wouldn't that be awesome? And Leah said, yeah, let's do it. Because she's so supportive. That was the biggest mistake of my life. Maybe. Actually, probably not. Probably made me confront my demons in a way that I never would have. So we get to Missouri, we get to the farm, and the plan was I was supposed to help my parents with the business side of things on the farm. For those who don't know, because nobody freaking knows who I am. For those who don't know, my family, we sold the home theater and home automation business in Utah when I was 10 years old, 11 years old. And then we moved to Missouri. We bought an RV. We lived in an RV for a couple of months. We drove to Missouri and we found this property, and then we bought the property. And before we closed on the property, we had 40 chicks staying in our RV with us, and it smelled terrible. And that was when we had 7 kids, 6 kids. No, how many kids are in my family? I sometimes get mixed up between Leah's family and mine because she has 8 kids in her family. I have 6 kids in my family. So we had 5 kids and 40 chicks living in an RV. And one of those babies, one of those kids that was living in the RV was like a 3-month-old baby. It was Grace, my youngest sister. And then within the first week of moving to the farm, the plan was to get 1 cow. 40 chicks is not a big deal. Like, chickens are super easy to take care of relative to cows. We were supposed to get 1 cow, and we had a meeting with our bishop, who is essentially like the pastor of the Mormon church on a local level. We had a meeting with our bishop, and he said, oh, you guys are here and you guys wanted to get a cow? Well, what a coincidence. I'm going to go look at some cows this week. Would you like to come? So then we went to this like calf yard. I don't really know exactly what it was, but essentially they had a bunch of cows. They had 2 cows, and they had some bottle calves, which are calves that have been taken away from their mother, even though they still need to nurse. So you have to bottle feed them every single day, twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. And it's very, very labor intensive. And my family, we went there, and the guy said to my parents, I'll give you a deal, which those are the magic words. If you want to convince my parents to do anything, just tell them, hey, cut you a deal, right here. If you buy 20 bottle calves and 2 cows, I'll throw in a llama and alpaca for free. My parents heard that word, that magic word, the magic F word. F-R-E-E, free. And you know what they said? They said, hell yeah, brother. 20 bottle calves, 2 cows, and a free llama and alpaca? Sign me the up. And guess what? We had, I think, 3 days, Myra? Myra's here. She remembers better than I do sometimes. I kind of block out this part of my life. What the That's so true. The parents love a good deal and free stuff. Yes, they do. So, for free? Reminds me of the Adam Sandler movie. Exactly. My parents are literally Adam Sandler trying to get, was it a Ferrari or a Lamborghini for free? So we get the deal. We have like 48 hours to prep this property that has never had livestock on it. There's like a falling down barn on one of the, was it a 10-acre plot? We bought 40 acres, 36 acres, because some of it got cut off, which is not enough land for a full-blown farm. And we had 48 to 36 hours to get this place ready for 20 bottle calves, 2 cows, and a free llama and alpaca named Snap and Crackle. I don't know what happened to Pop. But anyways, we pulled like an all-nighter, putting up fencing. We didn't have that much money because my parents ended up getting ripped off in the business, in the sale of their business, which would cause many problems down the road, down the line. So we bought these cows. We have such a small amount of time to get the property ready. I'm 11. I turned 12 the day that we moved into the farm. I'm a 12-year-old boy, and my dad says to me, "Boy, pick up this screwdriver and this hammer, and we're gonna build a fence." And I said, "Oh right, this is awesome. I love living on the farm. This is an adventure. Woo!" And then it was like the first day we got the cows, we bottle fed them. I named one of the cows after a girl that I had a crush on in middle school or elementary school. And it was like a fairy tale wonderland for, what was it, maybe like 13 hours. And then I realized, oh, this is going to be every single day for the rest of my life. Oh no. Oh no. Wait a minute. This was fun for one time, but I have to feed these baby cows this really terrible smelling milk formula every day. Oh, and we also have to milk the cows? What are we going to do with this llama and alpaca? Why did we get these? What is going on here? Sometimes I felt like I was maybe a little bit more aware of the predicament that we were about to be in than even my parents were. That's some good mud water. I have to finish off this mud water. Before Leah and I started drinking coffee, we got mud water. It's pretty good. I like it. Okay, where was I? How did we get here? This is the main topic of today's episode, a short introduction to who the host is. This is the short introduction. It does start the day I was born. You gotta have the deep, otherwise you won't understand what I'm talking about. Okay. And then for the next 6 years, I and everybody in my family worked their butts off on the farm, and I was homeschooled until junior year of high school. And the majority of my homeschooling entailed waking up, milking the cows, doing hay, building a barn, learning how to do electrical, concrete, framing with my dad. What else did we do? Just all sorts of fun farmer stuff, but not a whole lot of math, not a whole lot of social studies, no history. What is the War of 1812? Does that matter? No actual school. Well, a little. My mom was an English teacher in high school, for high school. So when my mom graduated from college, she had her English degree and she went into teaching, and so she taught a high school English class. So that is why I speak good, even though I grew up on a farm in Excelsior Springs, Missouri. I know how to articulate myself. I have a vernacular. I think things are very photosynthesis. I know a few multi-syllable words. No actual school, but my mom was an English teacher, and I read a lot of books. I was naturally pretty curious. I think I mentioned earlier in the episode that I always asked questions about volcanoes and life and evolution and science and God and why the heck are we here? Myra says, yeah, we didn't really do school. I don't know how us older kids turned out pretty intelligent. Not me literally milking the cows now while listening in. Oh no, I forgot. Myra's on the farm right now. My family is potentially going to sell the farm for the first time. We've been trying to sell the farm. Sorry, it's not my problem anymore. They have been trying to sell the farm for the last 8 years or something like that. Since the second day that we had the farm. And it might actually happen, but Myra is back on the farm right now. She's just graduated. She's pulling a me, helping the fam, literally milking the cows right now. There is somebody, isn't that crazy? Whatever it is that you're doing right now, take a second and think about the fact that there's somebody out there milking cows, getting pooped on, literally. Myra, I'm so sorry that you have to go through this right now. You'll get out of there, and then you'll probably have a mental breakdown. But it's fun. It's great. It's fantastic. Where was I? You can't distract me like that. It's funny. I have an interactive talk show. I can't be interacted with, or I lose track. Somebody, quickly, anybody. What were we talking about? Where was I? Farming. We were doing farming. I left. I told Leah I should move back to the farm. We did. And then I immediately went into a depression. A worse depression. So, the reason I keep bringing up that Mental Health Awareness Month, because mental health has played a pretty big role in my life. I think the first time I was depressed was when I was like 15 or 16, and I didn't really know what was going on. For 6 years I was on the farm. How did I get off the farm? I'll get to that. That's a good place to go. But yeah, the farm, the work, just the level of pressure, the lack of school, the isolation, because we were Mormon, we were homeschooled, we were on a farm, I didn't have a car, I couldn't drive, we lived, the closest friends that we had were like 6 miles away, and I couldn't ride the bike on the highway because I would get hit and killed. So I was stuck on this farm, like every day, all day. During the summer, my parents would occasionally take me to see friends, or friends would come over or pick me up, but for the most part, it was like 24/7 on the farm. Even Sundays, we had to milk before church, which is why we were always late. 7 years, I think. I think it was 6 years for me on the farm. Because 12 to 18, and then I went and did summer sales. I sold control in Houston, and I got scammed. The scammer has been scammed. But again, we'll get there. I'm getting ahead of myself. Mental health. I've struggled with depression on and off throughout my entire life. At some points, very bad, and some points, not so bad. I don't know exactly the first time it started. I think I had my very first and isolated panic attack when I was in 3rd grade, and then anxiety, maybe a little bit of depression for most of my life, all my life, essentially. And when we moved back to the farm, when I took my lovely, beautiful wife, who has a sensitivity to smells, when I took her back to probably the smelliest place on earth, I immediately turned into a different person. I just became a shell of a human being. I couldn't function. I couldn't provide the support that I had promised her. And she got a job providing for us, and I was supposed to help with the business side of the farm and potentially earn some equity, help them grow, scale, because they'd tried to sell the farm for so long and it wasn't happening. So they were like, what do we do? Let's just scale and hire some employees. I don't know. So we moved back to Missouri. Leah got her job. I had a mental breakdown, like a mini micro breakdown on the farm. And then Leah was like, we have to get off of the farm. You need to go get a job. And then the only thing I knew how to do was marketing. So I went and got a job at a law firm. It was the first job that, actually it was the second job that got back to me. And they had a slightly higher offer than the first job. So I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And I had no idea what I was getting into. Turned out the owner of the law firm had a personality that was very similar to my mom's. And my mom is a lovely person. She's very intelligent and awesome. What was the first job opportunity? It was some sort of copywriting job for an insurance agency in Kansas City that's like a really old, long-standing insurance agency. It would have been way easier. It was a whole big corporation. I was a small cog in a machine, one part of a team. I would have had a very easy time at that job. And it paid like maybe $5,000 less than the offer I got from the law firm. But you know what else it was? You know what else happened? Why I chose the law firm is because he took me to lunch. And food is the way to my heart. That's how you can get me to do anything. Tell me that I'll get free food for a week and I will sign myself up for school. How did you get accepted into college if you were barely doing schoolwork? That is a good question. See, apparently they didn't do a very good job at screening college applicants at BYU, Idaho. They'll let anybody in there. But I did get into Provo too, which is actually a very hard school to get into. So, well, very hard relative to Idaho. That's a good question, Bailey. I'll get to that. I will. That is a fantastic question. I think I have a couple of things that I'm going to have to write down to make sure that if I can't get to it in this episode, we can talk about it on Wednesday or Friday or next Monday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 a.m. Braden Moser in the morning. Happy. Okay, so I got this job at the law firm. And the personality of the owner, somewhat similar to my mom, in the sense that he was kind of he was a perfectionist. He had a tendency to do a lot of talking, and not listen to other people very much. And he was very kind of micromanagey, and I'm gonna stop complaining. He was a good guy. He was a great guy, but his personality was incompatible with mine, and I got drained pretty quickly. And like I said, I think it was maybe a month or two into working there that my job went from marketing assistant to nothing to do with marketing, pretty much. I took on the evidence database for this case that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about. But it was a mess. So much to do there, and it was like, if this case didn't go well, the whole law firm would have been shut down. So a lot of pressure for something to go well, and I was a key critical component of that because I was the person that got the evidence organized. There were thousands of pieces of evidence. And so I couldn't leave. And I just was sort of stuck there in this weird place for almost 2 years. And then when we finally got to a point in the project where they no longer needed me. I put in my 3 weeks notice, and then I was guilt tripped into almost staying. Because he was like, but we could do so much together, Braden. We could be everything. We could conquer the world. And I was like, I know, but you fumbled the bag, dude. Look at me. I'm the complete package. And no matter how many raises you give me, I'm not gonna leave. I'm not gonna stay. So I left. And the goal was to start my own business. And because the plan that I made up on the spot to scam Leah was that I would start a marketing agency, I started doing freelance marketing. Which is a great thing to do for some people. A lot of people are going to have a lot of success with freelance marketing. For me, I think I chose some bad clients to work with initially. And I put myself into some bad positions as far as like being really essential to some projects. The same thing happened that I had just gotten out of. And it was just like the back to back of like from the ages of 12 to 18, being a child laborer on a farm. And that's like that might be a harsh title or term to use, child laborer. But I mean, if you look at the reality of the situation, I was waking up first thing in the morning, and I had to milk the cows before I could have breakfast. And then I would have a banana smoothie and maybe some eggs. And then I would go back out and do other chores like build a barn or hay or feed cows or whatever. Going from that to putting myself through school, which I didn't have to have a job because I was poor enough that I got FAFSA, and I also actually had a full ride scholarship to BYU, Idaho, because of what happened during my junior and senior year of high school, which is the answer to Bailey's question of how I got into college if I was barely doing schoolwork, which we'll have to get to in episode 2. We've only got 5 minutes left of today's episode. I was trying to decide if I wanted to go till 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. But I think for today, short and sweet is the way to go. So we'll wrap up this story, and I'll say my toodaloos. The cliffhanger. Exactly. I gotta keep you coming back. The last part of the story of today's story is quit my job, started doing the freelance thing. I googled that if I was allowed to talk to this. I asked ChatGPT, so I'm going to trust ChatGPT. I googled if I was allowed to talk about this. I did some psychedelic mushrooms to try and maybe improve my mental health because of all of the cutting edge research that is going into psychedelics and all this stuff. So I did a little mushroom trip to try and understand my spirituality and my soul and get some assistance with my mental health, in addition to starting therapy, and also in addition to eventually now I am on antidepressants and all these other things. But I was like, I'm struggling and I need something. And I turned to that, and then I think I saw my life in a way that I hadn't seen it before. And I couldn't handle it, I guess. I don't know. It was like my life was not anywhere where I wanted it to be. I was so far off of the trajectory that I had planned that as a kid I like dreamed of being this person. I had this story that I wanted to tell with my life, and it was not even close. And I saw that for the first time, and I had a lot of pressure, financial pressure to make this happen. There's societal pressure, right? Like, men are supposed to provide. I had just left my religion, my lifelong religion, born and raised Mormon. I knew the truth. I had the story figured out. What happened before I got here? What am I supposed to do while I'm here? And what happens when I die? I had it all figured out. At least I thought I did. And then I finally saw that no idea what was going on. And I was way off trajectory. I was way off the path. And I had a mental breakdown. I had a panic attack. And then it was just, that was the end of my life. Before part 2. Tune in. 7 a.m. Wednesday. And thank you so much for being here. I think I'll just hang out and chat for a second. I'd love to hear if you have any questions, any thoughts. How did it go? Any feedback? Was the music too loud? Are you gonna break up with me because I broke my microphone in the first 10 minutes of the episode? And I'll kind of explain a little bit about this background too, because I've got some cool stuff back here. This is the symbol that I'm kind of like adopting as my sign off, as my symbol, and you'll see it right here. It's just always been a big part of my life. My family always does I love you to each other, and I want to make this community a place where we feel welcome and loved the way that this makes me feel. So, I love all of you. Thank you for being here. It seriously means so much. Even if you weren't part of the chat, even if you weren't part of the conversation, just knowing that you're here, listening, giving my voice an ear. You know that phrase, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, did it make any sound? You guys give the falling of my tree sound. Thank you for being here. Every weekday? No, I think I have ambitiously thought I would do it every weekday, but I think I'm going to start with a commitment to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Bailey says, thanks for sharing, Braden. This was great. I feel like the music could be a touch lower, but it wasn't distracting. I like the vibe overall. Great stories. Thank you. Thank you. That is fantastic feedback. Turn it down a little bit. Thank you, Leah. Leah says, so proud of you. Myra says, I love you. And she wants to know about my setup. Maybe I'll tell more about it. I think I explained this little dude, this little guy. And maybe next time I'll explain a little bit more. Maybe I can touch on some of the things, some of the items in my background. They all have a story. They all mean something. So Myra says, okay, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Heck yeah. Yeah. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And it is 8 a.m. right now. The show will start at 7 a.m. It'll typically go from 7 to 8. Between 8 and 9. 1 to 2 hours most days. We'll stick with that format and see how it goes. We're figuring it out together. Thanks for being here. I will see you Wednesday morning. Peace. Love you. Bye. Adios. End broadcast. Come on.